All right, everyone, I am joined by Greg Remmenga. We're talking legal advice, and over the past couple of weeks, we've kind of been talking about workman's comp, and we're going to continue on that theme today.
Right. We've talked about the fact that when you're injured in a workers' comp accident, you're entitled to weekly pay based upon your disability and being unable to work. The way that they calculate that weekly pay is your average weekly wage. They typically pay you 2/3, 66 2/3% of your average weekly wage. And that sounds fairly easy for a lot of people. If you work 40 hours a week, you have a hourly wage, it's pretty easy to calculate your average weekly wage. But I would still say that that's important not to just dismiss it at that, because the weekly pay that you're going to get is based on the average weekly wage, and your disability payment at the end is based upon your average weekly wage. So we need to explore it to make sure that they calculated it correctly.
Okay, so if you are one of those people, because you said sometimes it is a little easier, I work 40 hours every week. What if you are one of those people where your hours for the week constantly changing, maybe your salaried base, and so you're working 20 hours one week and then 46 hours the next week?
Well, of course, from my perspective, because I represent the injured worker, we want to argue that the weekly wage is as high as possible. If it works to our benefit to average it over the last 6 months, then we should argue that the average weekly wage should be based on the last 6 months average. On the other hand, a lot of people work overtime and have worked overtime for several months, and they just happen to get injured in a period where they're working no overtime. Well, we would want to argue that it's based on the average overtime that they've been receiving. Another interesting situation would be commissions. Maybe you're in a time where you've gotten no commissions, but you've been building up your employment, so you're coming into a period where you're going to get a bunch of commissions. We should argue that your average weekly wage is higher based upon those expected commissions because you've been working for a while.
All righty, Greg, thanks so much. If you fall into one of these categories or you think you do, give Greg a call. This is how you can get a hold of him, 263-GREG. Greg, thanks again for coming in.
Thank you.
Stick around, folks. Got your full weather forecast right after this break.
If you want Greg to answer one of your legal questions, visit krextv.com, click on Live in the Studio, and submit your question on the right side of the screen. Watch Greg's segment every Wednesday on News Channel 5 at noon.